chapter 7. All right. One hour, 37 minutes. Cover 2 chapters, should be good. All right. So important one is, well, first chapter 7 is enhancing communication skills in groups. So skills are things we can learn. So we listen, we practice, we implement, we get better at them. So we'll first talk about 7.1, verbal dynamics in small groups, the way people actually talk to each other with their words and verbal. Because we'll learn there's verbal communication and there's non-verbal communication, right? And what you say isn't as important as often what you do. Because actions do speak louder than words. So, but the most obvious yet elusive component of small group communication is the spoken word. Words are at the heart of who and what people are. When group members feel a need to protect themselves, they shift their attention from the group's goal to their personal goal of self-protection. That's creating a barrier to effective group process, correct? They become defensive. And that's why they feel the need to protect themselves, because maybe their ideas are rejected, or they feel like their group members don't communicate well with them. It doesn't matter, right? Whatever it is. And that causes defensiveness, which then shifts the personal goal of self-protection. That makes everything more difficult. Some subtle but pervasive. Pervasive means commonly occurring, or happening all the time, everywhere. Our word barriers are number 1, bypassing, number 2, allness, and number 3, fact inference confusion. So we'll learn about these more specifically now. So bypassing is when people talk, is this concept where bypassing takes place when 2 people assign different meanings to the same word, right? So I might throw a word out there like, I love this, right? And you're like, well, love to means like, you use like, sexual, romantic, physical love. And then, but love, I just meant as some hyperbole, meaning I really, really like it. There's also like platonic love of your friends. Then there's like love of your God or religion. Then there's love of your country. That's called patriotism. So there's actually, yeah, you see, there's all sorts of different words and meanings behind the words love. But so people can just assign different meanings and then they're bypassing. So the number of people involved in groups compounds the problem. And so the bigger the group, the more you have this happening. The possibility for multiple misunderstandings starts to occur. Therefore, good feedback among group members is essential. That's where people communicate verbally and you respond with some feedback to let people know, I totally understand. I think this is what you mean, right? You clarify things, you keep getting, you nod to let them, and you give them eye contact and know you're paying attention, you agree. And feedback is any response by listeners that let speakers know whether they have been understood accurately. So feedback can be verbal, like, oh, great, okay, cool, I understand. Or just nonverbal, where you just nod your head. So, or like, okay, right. All right, so all the statements, this is the second problem with verbal communication, is all the statements are simple but untrue generalizations. You've probably heard such honest statements such as women are smarter than men, men can run faster than women, football players aren't good students, right? They're like, all this is like that, right? Very, very generalistic, stereotypical. These statements are convenient, but they're simply not accurate. The danger of all the statements is that you begin to believe them. They're all like that. And to prejudge other people unfairly based on these preconceptions that aren't even true, that you have been created in your life. For example, like I might say, when it comes to racism, all Black people, all white people, all Asian people, all right, are like this. They're cheap. They steal. They're criminals. Actually, we have a senator. So I'm not sure, how do I do that? The button gets blocked by my little transcript text. It's pretty silly. So Tommy Tuberville is a senator from, I think, Alabama. Yeah, so he says that in this article from thehill.com, he spoke in Nevada supporting former President Donald Trump, and he said that he was called flat out racist, but he said that what's the exact quote? I call it a racist dog myself, but here's the actual quote. He's actually saying it here in the video, right? But he basically says that Democrats are pro-crime because they favor reparations, like slave reparations for Black people, and they think criminals are owed that. So he's basically saying like all Black people are criminals because they want slave reparations. Something I'm paraphrasing. You can watch the video, hill.com. And the whole point is you see that whenever you say the word, start saying the words all, right? It gets just unfair, untrue, and people get offended because you're now making no exclusions, right? And you're putting a huge label on a whole group of people. So that is an example of a real world of a senator, unfortunately, of our own country doing all in a statement, right? So because and then remember, people listen to him, he's a senator, and then they start prejudging all Democrats, all Black people as criminals, right? Or what was the word? Something like that. So be careful not to overgeneralize. Remember that each individual is unique, and you can avoid any kind of. I mean, theoretically, nothing in the world is always true, right? It's just the way you speak and express yourself. You want to be precise in your verbal communication because that's better for everyone because you're just understood and not misunderstood. Is just avoid the all mistakes. Excuse me. We skipped one. What happened there? There's bypassing fact inference confusion. Okay, so let's talk about number 3, fact inference confusion. So statements of fact can be made only after direct observation. See them. Inferences can be made at any time. You just think you make up opinions. No observation is necessary to make an inference. So fact inference confusion is when you confuse facts for inferences, which are not just opinions. Facts are never opinions. They're just true or false, right? Or they've been verified. Thus, it's a fact. So fact inference confusion occurs when people respond to something as if they have actually observed it. It's a fact, when in reality they've merely drawn a conclusion. It's an inference, right? So here's some examples of a fact or inference to give you some learning examples here. Do women have a maternal instinct? Fact or inference? Is that a fact or is that like an opinion? Okay. The Earth is warming with 2020 setting records globally. Fact, inference. Okay. College students like to party. Fact or inference? And then finally, Joan scored 1,500 on the SAT scholastic admissions test. Fact or inference, right? So you can see that if you can make the distinctions clearly, then you understand the difference. This one's not a fact. This one is a fact. This one is not a fact. This one is a fact. So these are inferences. These two. All right. 7.2, listening. Listening is a skill that can be improved with practice. It is an active process through which people select, attend, understand, and remember. So you select what to listen to, and that means it's not only just what you hear, but listening also includes what you see and smell and taste and touch, right? So I'm listening right now, but I'm also looking at, feedback and facial reactions if I could see anybody in the audience, but there's nobody here. So and you practice listening, right? Because there's all things, the list sorts of things in the world to listen to. And then after you select it, you then attend it. It means you pay attention to all the things you've kind of sensed and you can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. And then you pay attention to it. Oh, there's a rabbit being eaten by a hawk right in front of me. I'm gonna pay attention to that because lots of other things I can actually I can listen for and stimulate my senses. And then I understand what's happening. Okay. And then I remember it because that was traumatic and it was bloody and it's just something that you will pretty much probably remember for a really, really long time. So if you take a picture of it, the timestamp, right, the geolocation thing, then you might remember forever. So the 4 steps of listening is you select the message to listen to, which could be something you just see because someone's waving at you, right? So there's nothing to hear there, just see. So that's listening includes, again, sight, things you can, communication occurs non-verbally as well as verbally. And then is an active process where you again select it, then pay attention, understand it, interpret it, right? What does this look mean? Was that word mean? Was that picture mean? And then remember it, and then you've got the listening process. So let's learn specifically about it. So there are a bunch of listening styles. So 721, let's go over those. Your listening style is your preferred way of making sense out of the spoken words, messages you hear. Listening researchers have identified 4 overarching listening styles. It's being people-oriented, being action-oriented, you want to be content-oriented, and then time-oriented, right? So people who are people-oriented are really listening and focused on the person and the relationship, and they maybe don't hear all the details because they're really focused on just the person and the relationship that you have, right? It could be at work, could be a social relationship, whoever you're listening, could be a therapist. Action oriented is you listen for things so you could just act, right? So you'll leave out a lot of things because they're unimportant unless it's something I can take and then act upon, right? My daughter's like, I'm getting bullied. Like, okay, action oriented means I'm only listening to like who the bully is, so I can go do something about it, right? I said, yeah, that's a joke, but if you kind of get it, right? I'm not listening to all the other stuff about the bully. I just want to know who is the bully, so I can go confront the bully myself or something, right? As a parent, do something about it, or maybe call the bully's parents and let them know what's going on, right? Or call the school. And then content oriented is you're just listening to actually what happened, right? No blame, just what actually is going on, the actual content, the substance. And then finally, time oriented is just you're getting kind of monochronic, polychronic, and you listen very well, but for only limited amounts of time because you got to go to the next meeting or something. You're being paid by time, and so you're very focused on the time because time is money. All right. So obstacles 722. Well, how come people don't listen well? A bunch of reasons. So first one is some people prejudge the speaker. Right, you're too young, you're a girl and don't know what you're talking when it comes to sports, or you're a man, you don't know what you're talking about when it comes to makeup. You prejudge people who are older than you, who are different race, different religion, different politics, and therefore you don't listen to them, right? You just prejudge as I don't want to listen to you, I don't agree with you, I don't like you. Or it could just be again, right, like anybody ever been a worker and you tell your boss, hey, you should do this because blah blah, and they're like, you don't tell me what to do. And then like something goes bad and you warn them, like the bathroom overfloods, and they're like dealing with it, and you're like, you always want to say, I told you so, right? But they didn't listen to you because they prejudged you because you're the worker, they're the boss, so they don't really listen to the workers. Rehearing and response. People are not listening, they're actually thinking about how to respond to what they just saw, but then they stop listening, right? Because they're mad, or they're like, oh, but that, but blah blah blah, because they disagree, right? So they're actually, let me fix that. I think it's supposed to be rehearsing a response. There you go. It's better. Slideshow, reshare. Okay, so 7.23, a guide to active listening. Because we talked about earlier, right here in 7.2, right? It's an active process, where you select the 10, understand and remember. But here you can kind of see it's broken down into more like steps that you can understand. So it's first of all, like stop what you're doing, right? Stop what you're doing. Because you want to start listening. Because you have to focus and pay attention. You can't actively listen and do anything else, right? It's kind of like reading a book. When you're reading a book, you can't do anything else but read, right? If you ever try to do other things, you ever notice what you read, you're like, I don't even remember, I have to reread it, right? So it's just, by the way, reading is great exercise for your brain, and you should exercise your brain every day. And then you look, because remember, listening isn't always about what you hear. It could be something you see, or something you taste, or something you smell. Well, that taste smells really good, right? Or something that, touches you or bumps into you, or is around you, or that you shake hands with, or you high five with. And then you listen. What do I hear? Then you ask appropriate questions. Did I hear that right? Do I hear you saying you're going to do this? Or what time are you going to do that? You're clarifying, or where are we going to do this? And then paraphrase content in your own words. What just happened? What did you see, hear, taste, touch, smell? And paraphrase means to use your own words. So you paraphrase what you paid attention to, saw, and heard. Right. And then it's a lot less, but you smell a fire, for example, right? And be like, oh no, right? And it's just there's certain, every once in a while it's taste, touch, smell, but mostly it's what you see and what you hear. And then paraphrase your feelings in your own words. What are the emotions, the personal connections that came out of everything you just saw or heard, or also maybe even taste, touch, smelled, right? So 7.3, let's talk about the importance of nonverbal communication groups. So we focused on the beginning on verbal dynamics and the spoken word. Now we're going to talk about the things you see, and then you taste, touch, smell, as opposed to the words that you hear. So this definition includes body posture and movement. So the way you sit or stand, the way you move or don't move at all, your eye contact, or you're reading something like that, right? You're doing this while you're speaking to me. That's not really, you know, reading and speaking are very different. So make sure you're speaking to the camera, gesturing, using your voice, and not just reading. It could be also eye contact, facial expressions, smiling is the most important one, right? Seating arrangements, like where you sit says a lot. People who sit in the front, pay attention. They tend to be the best worker student. And then the people who sit in the back are hiding and they're passive, and they tend to be the worst students and the worst workers. So think about where you sit when you're in a room, especially at work. Spatial relationships, again, just the way you use the space around you. Do you sit far away from the group? Do you sit with the group? Who do you sit next to? How much space do you create when you're around different groups of people? It's a really good example, a good way to understand spatial relationships, right? The closer you are literally to people is also figuratively connected, right? So if you're very close to someone because you know them well and you hang around a lot, you will be much physically closer to each other all the time, right? Because you want to talk and interact and stuff like that. So and it also includes your personal appearance, the way you dress, the way you look, your hair, your tattoos, your you know, you have a beard, do you color your hair, do you use your time, mono or polychronic, and then even tone of voice. Remember, there's like high pitched tone of voice, like that's hot, and then there's low tone of voice, like hubba bubba, baby, right? And so you want to use, good speakers use their tone of voice. You don't want to be monotone, one tone, and monotone also is the root word for monotony, which means boredom through repetition, right? So your voice becomes boring when you don't change your tone of voice a lot. As a speaker, you need to constantly do that, and that's one of the important parts of delivery, actually, as well. So all of this actually goes towards delivery, which is 7.3, right? All right, you practice this in your speeches, and then you get graded on delivery at the end of the semester. So it's all the ways you have body posture, movement, eye contact, facial expression, seating, the way you sit, stand, spatial relationships. This, on camera, it's a lot easy. It's not really there, but personal appearance. So if you dress up, do you have visual aids? You know, use of time, and in the new tone of voice. So although the words someone utters are not classified as nonverbal communication, the pitch, quality, and intonation of the voice, the rate of speaking, and the use of silence can speak volumes. Thus, vocal tone is considered part of nonverbal communication. So even though vocal tones are verbal, we consider them nonverbal because it's not the words and the meanings behind the words. It's the, you know, like the way you say something. It's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? The tone of voice behind a word can change the meaning of the word completely, right? Like if I ask you to do something, you're like, yeah, right? And that question whether that really means yes, right? The way you said it, the tone. So, and that's considered nonverbal communication. So you cannot not communicate. You're always communicating, right? Where you look, the way you dress, the way you talk, where you're from, your race, your gender, your shoes, who you're with, your backpack, your water bottle, you know, your coffee cup. All these things say something about who you are constantly, and whether you want to or not. So whether I want to or not, people look at me and say, oh, he's Asian, maybe he's probably good in that, right? That's just something you're communicating whether you like it or not, or intend to or not. And that's actually true. That's happened to me many, many times. People look at you and they're like, oh, you're good at math, huh? Right? Or you're smart. It's kind of like interesting racial stereotype thing or something. Not just the race, though, also the way you look with the race, right? So, all right. Again, those are things that people see, right? It's not the things that I say. I don't say I'm good at math. People look at me and think I'm good at math. Nonverbal communication is more common than verbal communication. Way more. Just not. That's why it's so important. So the world is not really about what you say to people and what you hear from them. It's the thing, all the nonverbal communication going on in the world around us. That's actually just all the time. Can't stop it, whether you intend to or not. And we mostly just look at the world, and all these things are spoken to us, right, by the coloring or the patterns, or it's you know, that's the stimulation of the world. And nonverbal communication expresses emotions and feelings much more than spoken words, right? Think about I love you versus I love you, right? There's a huge difference, even though the words there are the same, right? Because the added nonverbal communication makes the emotion, the feelings of the phrase I love you stronger, right? And do actions speak louder than the words? Hard to prove. I mean, think about, like, in terms of evidence, we don't know it's a fact, but most people think it's definitely true, right? That nonverbal communication is more important than the words you say. 7.4. application of nonverbal communication research to groups. So let's apply all of this to our group work, and then also, you can apply it to yourself for your delivery skills. So number one is just understanding physical posture, movement, and gestures. And remind each other in your group members, you're all getting a collective grade for your storytelling, informative, persuasive, and business presentation, that all of us need to have good posture, good movement, lots of hand gestures, on visible with the camera, right? That would make good eye contact with the audience, which is the camera in this case. That we use lots of facial expressions, right? Like just whatever you want. Depends on what your topic is. Maybe if your storytime topic is scary, you might be like, right, do scary faces, just Home Alone. Like Macaulay Culkin became so famous and rich because he did the whole facial expression as a kid. Vocal cues, again, high pitched tone of voice or low tone of voice. Using accents. Like, Charlie, you bit my finger. What? Peace off, you bloody wanker. Right? I could use accents. Forget about it. Get to the chopper. Hasta la vista, baby. Right. And then personal space. If you want to be working collaboratively, you want to work together in a group, and then probably be in a circle so everyone can communicate and see each other. Squares and rectangles don't work. Also, when you have a wedding party, for example, circle tables always. Right. Because people who sit together, they interact better. Right. It's the whole the Knights of the Round Table. Like the king found that you had to put people on a round table to get everyone in a group talking to each other around a table, because otherwise it becomes corners or who you're next to. And just go and practice that at any table you've ever been and see that's very difficult to get a group discussion going with a square rectangle table. And then territoriality, how people use territory. Like I might mark my desk at school, my cup, my water bottle, my backpack, my notes, my pen, right? And then when I leave, it's not mine anymore, even though I don't own it, it's just temporary. The way, we use fences, or we draw lines in the sand to mark territory. Animals pee, rub trees, to actually mark territory as well. Male animals, I think, mostly. So, and then there's also seating arrangement. We talked about sit up front, paying attention, attentive, good worker, sit in the back, lazy, passive, hiding, bad student or failing student. Don't want to be here versus I want to be here. I'm eager beaver in the first row. The middle is kind of in between. Sometimes, remember, if you're late, you often get the worst seats is in the back or the very front, right? So it's just, and then personal appearance, again, dress for success. Dress to impress, right? Dress for success, dress to impress. It matters in life, right? Because people look at you, and that's the most common thing that people do to communicate. And they make assumptions about you based on how you appear and your dress and your grooming and your attire and shoes, socks, all that things. And then the communication environment, where you are affects how people do a lot of nonverbal communication, right? Because if you're outdoors and very far away from each other, you can't give someone a facial expression because you can't see each other very well, right? But if you're sitting in a room and there's echo, so there's very good acoustics, so you can speak very loudly and everyone can hear you without like a microphone or amplified sound, right? Or the environment can be lighter, darker, different colors, different shapes, and all that kind of affects how body language and nonverbal communication goes into the world too as well. So observe and analyze posture, movement, and gestures. Paul Ekman, Wallace Friesen have identified 5 major types of nonverbal behavior. They call number 1 emblems, illustrators, number 2, number 3 effect displays, number 4 regulators, and 5 adapters. So emblems are nonverbal cues that have specific verbal counterparts and are shared by all group members. Some might go, yes, no, right? You see that I'm using a verbal word and then a nonverbal action together, right? And everybody understands both. And they mean, that, right? Because you can't do like, maybe, I don't know, right? It's just or I might say, stop, or shh, or I might do, yes, sir, right? You see that there's always a word or verbal expression with a nonverbal action together, and they have a very specific meaning, and everybody in the group understands what that means, right? Okay, so there's no unclarity where the maybe the actions contradict the words, right? It's just they're consistent. That's an emblem. Okay. Number 2, let's talk about illustrators. These are nonverbal behaviors that add meaning to accompanying verbal messages. Some might say like, what do you think? Right? Or, let's do it. Trying to fist bump you. So I do nonverbal behaviors that go with my words, but they're not exactly the same meaning. They try to make the words better, right? And more like positive or interactive and more effective. So that's why gestures are so important. We need to have emblems. We need to use illustrators. We also need to use affect displays. These are nonverbal cues again that communicate emotion. Like love, kiss, like high fives, chest bumps, all the things that just show celebration, warmth, positivity. And those are all affect displays, right? So I think, when people cry and hug, and those are all, emotional things, because that happens maybe at a funeral, right? Or something sad. Or when your favorite team loses or when your favorite team wins, right? You see all sorts of emotional, nonverbal body language. Like I've seen some of the commercials, they show like football fans cheering. It's just like they look like they're going to war. Right. And you're like, yeah, look at the emotion showed through all that nonverbal expression, right? And then number 4 are regulators. So these are nonverbal behaviors that help a group control the flow of communication. Like, okay, hold on, you speak, then you're next, right? So you see how the way I use my gestures and my hey, facial expressions, I look, kind of I put up a, so that everyone doesn't argue at the same time or communicate at the same time, and there's flow, right? And we play what we call traffic cop. So it's like, so there's just a good flow to the communication. And people aren't interrupting each other, they're causing conflicts. And this is very important in small group discussions because people rely on these kind of regulators to know when they should talk and when they should listen, right? So, and then when you're online on Zoom, you might do something like I asked you to please raise your hand if you want to take over the mic and say something, right? So you might do that. You can go to the chat and use the emojis. I could do thumbs up. I could do, where is it? Clapping. I applaud what you're doing. It could also be, let's see, like you're next. Thank you. On and on and on, because you can use emojis as well. And this would be a good example of regulators in a digital text formats, right? So then just regulators are very helpful. Adapters. These are nonverbal acts that satisfy personal needs and help people adapt to their immediate environment, right? So wherever people are, they'll actually do these little adapters, and their body language. By the way, if you're a poker player and you're doing adapters, you're going to lose because you want to have a poker face and not show your adapters, because then people will understand you and then your betting strategy and beat. So these are nonverbal acts, and what happens is they're important for learning to get along with others and for responding to certain situations. So generally, people are not really aware of their adaptive nonverbal behavior. So you don't really know that you do these things. Like only scratch your head when you're kind of nervous or thinking. But it could be scratching, biting your nails, grabbing something, twirling your hair. And researchers have noted that when people become nervous, anxious, or upset, they frequently display more self-adaptive behaviors. So if you're ever nervous and upset, you see yourself on camera, and you'll start to figure out, because you're not aware of them, what your nonverbal adaptive behaviors are. The things you do when you're kind of stressed out or feel anxious or feel nervous or feel upset, right? Like you might see me start stretching, or I've seen people crack their knuckles, like they want to get in a fight, just it makes all these weird popping sounds. It's kind of, that one's interesting, right? And you see just some people, they might I'm trying to think of some other ones that are pretty common that I've seen. Just, yeah, you just see people just start, they're doing the thinking pose, like a Rodin, right? It could be on, they pull their hood over like this, and now I can't see anything. It's like you're closing away, leave me alone, right? So, okay. So 7.2, let's learn about eye contact. So when eye contact does occur in a small group setting, it may serve one or more important functions. It's number 1, cognitive, number 2, monitoring, number 3, regulatory, number 4, expressive. So here we have the cognitive function where the eyes roll up or to the side, and that means the eyes are tied to thinking. So that it's a good example is the eyes are tied to thinking, and when they roll up in the side, that means that if I ask you a question, you're thinking of the answer instead of answering it. So if I say, what's your name? And you go, Joe, I know your eyes rolled up, which means you were thinking, right? It's cognitive function. Your eyes are tied to that. Instead of answering my question, you thought of what to say, which means you're probably lying. Right. So look for way people's eyes are related to their brains. That's the cognitive function. And it just tells you, right? Most people, when they think of what to say instead of just answering it, means they're going to lie. They're trying to manipulate the answer. Right. So because if I ask you what your name is, you don't have to think about that. It just kind of pops out automatically. Right. So if you start I know, wait, you're not going to tell me your name. You're thinking of what to say instead of giving me your real name, right? That makes me think you're going to. I'm now suspicious, right? So okay, monitoring function. But this way, this is really really good. Good poker players. They know that and then they kind of control that. So, you think without your eyes just going straight instead of like rolling up and by the way, oh, if you're ever taking a test, look around and you get to watch some of your friends, classmates taking a test because they're all thinking. Their eyes are often up or to the side, right? And so you really notice it if you observe a bunch of people taking an exam. If you just focus on their eyes. Monitoring functions, you seek feedback. So you're using your eyes just let people know, like, oh, I'm talking, and then the people are either like, which means you're not doing a great job or they're really tired, or they're like nodding and you see them nodding, which means that they're giving you feedback like, I agree, I listen, I'm listening, right? So then everything's good. So eye contact's really good for monitoring what's going on, even though you're the original originator of the messages coming out there, right? Verbally and non-verbally. So you can also use your eyes to regulate conversation, right? Like who should talk next, right? And kind of use it as, again, what we call a regulator over here, right? Flow of communication. So eye contact helps with regulation. Expressive function, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So just, people go like, okay, or again, they're thinking, right? Or they can do like squiggly eyes and just all sorts of different, expressive functions with their eyeballs, the way you look. Some people are, my children can do cross-eyed, I cannot. I'm trying to look at my nose. So that's as good as it gets, but my children can totally do it, right? It's just some people are very expressive with their eyes. 743, facial expressions. So the face is revealing, so get your poker face on. If you are in an environment where you don't want your nonverbal communication giving away things to your opponents or your competition, right? So Ekman and Friesen have identified 6 primary emotions displayed on your face, and that's happiness, anger, surprise, sadness, disgust, and fear. Here we go. All right. So here's a picture of the 8 basic facial expressions, but here they're Ekman and Friesen are focused on just the 6. It's happiness, anger, surprise, sadness, disgust, and fear. All right. So according to this research, people communicate happiness with an area around their eyes and smiles and raised cheeks. So happy, raised cheeks, mouth, eyes open. Disgust, raised upper lips, wrinkled noses, lowered eyelids, lowered brows, so disgust. Then we got fear, usually around your eyes, mouths open. So fear, mouth open. Also, you notice that surprise and fear can be related. Anger, people lower their eyebrows, stare intensely. Where's anger? There. And surprise, raised eyebrows, wide open eyes, often open mouths. So raised eyebrows, open mouth, open eyes. And then sadness, eyes and mouth. There's sadness right there. Mouth, big time, and then eyes. Okay. So all speakers should be able to do all of these. And when you're speaking, you really want to use happy face a lot, right? Just that's the one that unless your story requires you to show a little anger, the Minotaur is angry or something, right? Or the king is contemptuous of the hero because he wants his daughter, or you're disgusted by all the blood and death and gore, or you're afraid of all the death and violence and gore, or you're happy about all the death and violence and gore. You're a victim of the violence, death, and gore, so you're sad, or your family members are sad. You're surprised by what's happening, and then you're neutral and indifferent, right? So let's talk about vocal cues. So here we're talking about the way you say something with your voice. So it's the pitch, rate, volume, and quality of your voice, also called paralanguage. These are important in determining the meanings of messages, right? So, because that can give a sarcastic meaning like, no, okay, right? And from a speaker's paralanguage cues, you can make inferences about how the people feel towards you. You may also base inferences about a person's competence and personality on vocal cues. Don't overanalyze this one though. So, right. So it's just, high pitch, low tone of voice, how fast or slow you speak, and alternate that. The volume get a little louder, you get a little bit whispery. And we also use, again, the quality of our voice could be their accents, right? And just the way we use it. And some people have a great voice. You can actually get a job on radio if your voice is really cool. You'll narrate commercials and movie lines and stuff, and just they'll never see your face, they'll always hear your voice, right? So practice using your vocal cues. Personal space. So we're looking at proxemics and territoriality in 745, 746. So personal space or proxemics is the study of how close or far away we choose to be to other people and objects. It helps us better understand how the use of personal space gives us clues about the relationships we have with others. So we usually kind of have this bubble where the first foot and a half is intimate space. It's our own. So you only let people who like are very close to you get in there. Personal space is what we do in public. We give everyone 1.5 to 4 feet if we can, unless we're all crowded into like a bus or a train, right? Social space, where we talk to people 4 feet to 12 feet, and then public space is 12 feet and beyond, right? It's kind of a good example of just how we understand our personal space and how whether you let people get close to you, you always maintain distance. And proximity is pretty fascinating. Again, you see that. You just see the way that people, how close or far apart they get. And it's interesting, right? So I know some married couples, when they show up at a party, it's like, like yeah, I know other married couples, they're always together at the whole party, right? It's interesting. Just so good example of just kind of what does that say about their relationship? One, not entirely as good or bad, but just one couple's more independent, right? So 746 territoriality, remember animal behavior, but we do it too. We mark territory, they mark territory. We use markers, dogs pee, bears scratch trees. What do we use? A phone or a bag or a water bottle, a pen or pencil, piece. Think about when you go to class, the way students mark their desk or their table they're sitting at, right? And that let everyone know I'm here. And then higher status individuals generally attempt to claim more territory. So people who are the leader or who are more powerful, have more status, you'll see them come maybe take up more space, or they'll put their backpack on the chair next to them instead of letting someone sit there, right? It's like they're taking up more space. So seating arrangements. So where you sit affects who you speak. Remember we talked about this earlier, be the knights of the round table. Round tables facilitate equality and communication, and you can look at everybody. Whereas corners and squares don't allow that. Be visible, because you need to make the eye contact. So sit in a way where everyone can see you when you sit somewhere. Leaders will also choose seats to maximize eye contact and interaction. And stress leads to seeking distance from others. So if you feel stress in this environment, you'll notice that the way people sit in a room like that is the people who are far away from the leader and what's going on, they're probably feeling stressed, and that's why they're sitting that way, like that. Gender. Women sit closer than men in America, and men seek more space around other men because we're homophobic. And right, we're like, oh, I'll take up 3 seats because I'll put my backpack down and I'll lie down on 2 seats, right? But women sit closer than men do. And then extroverts and introverts are different, and the introverts prefer distance, and extroverts will get close and violate your personal space and intimate space sometimes, right? So because they want to chat and socialize. So 748, dress for personal appearance, dress for success and dress to impress. It matters. People sum you up in seconds upon meeting, and you only get one chance to make your first impression, so make sure it's a good impression. Attraction matters too. That all goes into personal appearance as well. And don't stereotype but grasp the implications of just what it means when people are dressed a certain way. As you get older and wiser, I think you get better at it, especially if you're good at using your eyes. And you understand what you see and what it means, and it's pretty applicable. You do a good job of that, right? So I can tell if you know how to talk to somebody, you can really quickly tell who went to college and who didn't. The difference in way people communicate from college-educated people, which is only about 31% of Americans, and 69% of Americans never finished college. So 2/3 Americans kind of talk this way, and 1/3 Americans talk this way. And you know what it is, it can stands out. In India, I found that the well-educated Indians speak English, and then the non-educated, higher educated Indians and stuff, right? They speak Punjabi or Hindi or all their native tongue, but they didn't learn English. But all the educated Indians learn English, right? And they speak it very, very well. And that was a quick way to kind of figure out, just if you speak English as an Indian, you're educated, right? And if you don't, I'm talking about really well, you can have a conversation easily, right? They learn British English too, by the way. And then 749, the communication environment, the surroundings matter. It affects the way people communicate. You're at a funeral, you're in a library, you're at a loud nightclub, you're outdoors, you're indoors, it's dark, it's light. You're at a big concert versus you're at your you're in your living room with 3 or 4 people, right? Just the where you communicate affects everything that goes on about verbal and nonverbal communication. So 7.5, we'll learn about the functions of nonverbal cues in groups. So let's learn to read people's body language in our groups. So 7.1 is that nonverbal communication influences perceived literature. So a lot about who people think is the leader of the group or should be the leader of the group is based on what they do, not what they say, right? Where they sit, the space they take up, the way they gesture and their facial expressions and their vocal characteristics, right? And the way they dress. Might be all these factors that kind of go like, oh yeah, that person seems like a leader, right? 7.2, you're about to vote tomorrow, by the way, right? And it's kind of interesting. What does a leader look like? You can see all the candidates out there, and it's interesting about like, the way they dress, the way they look, their haircuts, their race, and just tall or big or short, fat, skinny, and just it's interesting, right? How you can kind of look and just say, what does this person look like a leader to me? Through their body language, right? So it influences 7.2. It influences persuasion a lot. Right? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. So persuasive communicators exhibit more animated facial expressions. They use more gestures to emphasize their points, and they nod their heads more than those who are less persuasive. So do you nod? I'm a nodder, by the way. I've been jokingly called the bobbing head dog because I nod. And if I don't like or disagree with you, I fully will do this right to you. I'll let you know. I'll give you feedback, right? That I disagree, don't like it. Right? So I've been in a PTA meeting. One of the moms was talking. I was just like, and everyone was looking at me like, damn, like, yeah, I have no problem letting people know, like, this is not a good use of our time. Okay, so, but I'll really, really nod if you're doing something great, right? And support you and clap and go over and shake your hand and all that good stuff. So, and also 7.3, it actually synchronizes interaction. Nonverbal cues play a central role in adapting and relating to others. We tend to mirror the posture and behaviors of others. It's really interesting. We tend to mirror that. So that's why if you smile, people smile back at you. If you frown or give them resting bitch face, they give you frowns or resting bitch face back, right? So that's why I smile through life. And it seems to get us in sync with those whom we interact. I actually got pulled over yesterday. I only got a warning, not a ticket. But the cop, had his stern face on, sunglasses, even though it was a cloudy, snowing day. And I was like, hi, officer. I just smile. Yeah. I try to show confidence. People reflect that. They don't, it detensifies the situation, right? I'm not giving him a dirty look, right? So, and then it just helps us synchronize with the people we interact. So these authors suggest that during group interactions, people may actually adopt poses similar to those of others they like or agree with. So you'll actually copy the body language of people you are like and agree with. And coalitions group members can actually be identified by the way they, not just their verbal agreement, but also by their synchronized nonverbal behavior. So if you got like 3 or 4 people in a group who all like each other and agree all on the same thing, you'll notice that they'll start to all act like the same, laugh the same, they'll all gesture the same, they'll all kind of like stand around the same. And it's just everyone influencing each other. So remember we talked about the definition of group is that group members mutually influence each other. And that's a great example of that. And groups do not develop a static way of behaving non-verbally. It's not one way. It's constantly changing. Nonverbal communication may depend on the topic, how group members feel toward one another as they become more comfortable after meeting together over several sessions. Right. So you might see somebody's posture be kind of like this, closed off and defensive. And then like after a few group meetings and they're like, oh, the group's cool. Actually, we're doing a good job, right? So you have confidence in the group, you have faith in the group, and you notice that this goes away forever. And it's always like, hey, what's up, blah, 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 right? And you can just kind of see that over time. 7.5.4, nonverbal communication provides information about perceived honesty and dishonesty, right? So it's like people look at you and they figure out what you're saying is true or not, or, are you lying, so, or exaggerating. What's the word? Is it a cap? You capping? You're bullshitting me, right? So I had a student tell me that, or teach me that today, because I was like, I have no idea what that means. So Eklund and Friesen found that feet and legs often reveal people's true feelings. Ooh. So they theorized that while people consciously manipulate their facial expressions, poker face, to hide deception, they are not so likely to monitor their feet. So one team of researchers suggested that the following nonverbal behaviors listed in order from most to least important can provide clues as to whether someone is lying, right? And I told you the eyes. It's like, are you thinking? Just the cognitive function of your eyeball is connected to your brain and makes me think like, okay, why aren't you just answering questions? Why are you thinking? So the greater time lag in response to a question. So when people don't answer a question quickly, then they pause longer and longer, that's more suspicious. They're lying. right? Because they're thinking of what to say. Reduce eye contact. But good people are good at, good liars look you right in the eye and lie. But most people are bad liars, right? Anybody know a bad liar? They're just too honest with people. They're not good. That's a good thing, right? About that. Yeah, they'll be like kind of can't look at you in the eye and lie directly to you. Increased shifts in posture, a little fidgety, right? Nervous twitches. Nervousness is energy, so expressing it through the different shifts in posture. More hand and shrug emblems, right? Okay, like I don't know. Right? More adapters because you feel nervous. And then unfilled pauses. Well, maybe less smiling because they're not confident, a little scared. Right? Confident people smile. Slower speech. Again, everything's slower. Time lags, and then higher pitch and voice. A little bit higher pitch and voice. So, and then more deliberate pronunciation and articulation. So where you say the words that you slowly say without smiling, and you kind of pause a little bit, have some adapters, and kind of don't look at people. You will pronounce and articulate the words though, because you're kind of focused on that. So 7-6, let's interpret it nonverbal communication. So in online groups, video interaction is better than text because you can see people's faces, hear their voice. Text is only some words. It depends on how good of writers they are. Voices, not bad because you can hear the tone and the pitch, but you can't see anything. So video interaction is just better because it allows you to get the nonverbal communication in there. So let's learn about interpreting it in context. So that's 7-6-1. So first we're going to look for a cluster of cues. So what you're looking for is these together in a lie, not just one of them makes you a liar, right? It's that they're doing a bunch of them together, probably lying, right? That's what you look for, a cluster of all these things. Recognize that people also react differently to different stimuli. So not everyone reacts. You might tell somebody like, congratulations, you're having a kid because your partner's pregnant, right? Some people are like, happy, shed tears. Other people are like, oh. Other people are like, it's not mine. It's right. So you just kind of see that everyone reacts different. So just be open-minded and don't prejudge. Consider cultural and gender differences and understanding people's body language because it's really different across cultures, right? And then men and women also, I told you, women sit closer, men sit farther away, women are a little more touchier with men or women, men are less touchy, are okay touchy with women, but not touchy with men. And then also with this person, what's your past experience of nonverbal communication with them? So you start to learn people's patterns and you see their adapters, or you learn some of their emblems and illustrators pretty well. Right? They're always like, let's go party, right? It's always exacting, and that they're charged up, ready to go. So look for cues that communicate liking, power, and responsiveness. So Albert Mehrabian developed a three-dimensional model where people derive meaning from nonverbal behavior based on number 1, immediacy or liking, number 2, power, and number 3, responsiveness. So we look at verbal and nonverbal communication. We see does it mean that they like or dislike? So we, based on the immediacy principle, group members who consistently sit closer to you, establish more eye contact with you, and in general are drawn to you and probably they like you versus the people who don't look at you much, and they usually sit far away from you in a group. So that's a quick way to just figure out who likes and dislikes each other in terms of the group. The way they sit far away, close, and also who makes eye contact with each other and who doesn't. Power. Friends look at each other all the time, right? So, but enemies, they don't, or they glare at each other, right? And so power behaving, again, indicating influence and status. Take up more space. The way you dress, the way you talk, and responsiveness behaviors indicating interest, intention, nodding, or like not even paying attention, right, or sleeping, or not at the meeting at all. You take a long time to respond to messages versus people who immediately respond and make it almost synchronized. So there you go. All right, so 7-6-2. Let's develop the skill of perception checking. You might see this on the final exam. So perception checking is people judge you by your behavior, not by your intent. Right? They just see you do something and they don't know why you did it or what you were trying to do. They just observe and they make some predictions, right? So you judge others the same way. So by what you see, not by what they're thinking. So that's the world. It's about what you remember. Perceptions are greater than reality. If I think you're not a good student, it doesn't matter if you're actually a good student or a bad student, right? The fact that eyes of the professor think you're a bad student for whatever reason, I have a cluster of cues that tell me you're not a good student, right? That's reality, right? You make an impression, and the impression is not necessarily true, but people judge you based on that impression, right? So perception checking is a way to counter that. So it's a skill of asking someone whether your interpretation of his or unspoken message is accurate. There are 3 steps to using the skills. So first, we observe the nonverbal cues we've discussed, facial expression, gestures, tone of voice, paralanguage, proxemics, territoriality, dress, physical appearance. And then next, we mentally draw a conclusion about what the nonverbal behavior may mean. What does it mean that they dress that way? What does it mean that they stand so, like confidently or close or slouchy, or the way that they gesture? And finally, ask the other person if your inference was accurate. I'll look at people and be like, having a bad day, or people will look at me and ask me, like, you having a good day? And just, based on the way you non-verbally communicate and stuff, it's pretty interesting, right? And then I'll tell them, no, I'm just thinking about something, right? Or like, yeah, I am having a pissy day, actually. So, and you notice that basically people can tell by looking at you. So you verify that by actually asking, okay, I was kind of looking at you and you're looking pretty tired, beat up. Are you tired and beat up? They're like, Chapter 8. This will be the last chapter for today. So I'm gonna first tell you a story. And there's a picture here, Jesse Owens, the 1936 Berlin Olympics. It's not about the Nazis or Germany. It's actually about Adidas and Puma, which is actually owned by these 2 brothers at the time, who now dislike each other and then died. And then that's why Adidas and Pumas are total rivals and can't coexist. They're brothers, Adi and Rudolph, but they hate each other. And they got in a big conflict about who should be the sponsor for Jesse Owens when he won the Olympics. Was he going to wear Adidas shoes or Puma shoes? And that kind of the root of the conflict. And then they died hating each other. They're the two of the biggest shoe companies in the world besides Nike and athletic wear companies. And it's actually founded by brothers who hate each other. They had a conflict, and the conflict got as bad as it could get. So conflict happens when there's disagreement. Communication experts William Homa and Joyce Hawker define conflict as number 1, an express struggle, 2, between at least 2 interdependent people, and number 3, who perceive incompatible goals, scarce resources, or interference from others, and number 4, to achieve specific goals. So, how do we know? Conflict isn't just, you have traffic conflict, or you have conflict with somebody in your relationship because you had a misinterpretation. We're talking about at work or at school in a group. And it's just that, there's definitely an expression of some kind of struggle, verbal, nonverbal. And then it's between the people in the group. They rely on each other, right? So conflicts between strangers don't matter because it's just, you never see each other, who cares? It's for conflicts with people who need to work together that's when we need to manage it. And the reason there's a conflict is because there's a perception. Remember, it might actually not be true, but people think for whatever reason that the goals aren't the same. There's resources that we're going to fight over. Or aren't being distributed fairly, including like pay. Why does that group member make more money than me? And because that's one reason that they used to hide salaries, right? But now that's all transparent. It's important for corporations to share their salary information with everybody, so you know. And so you don't get ripped off, or basically because your coworker makes way more than you and they're the same education and everything, but you're a woman or you're a minority or something like that. So you're not a white male. Or maybe you're a white male in a world of non-white males and you're not being paid as well too, right? So, and then there's also, you feel like the people are interfering with you for some reason too as well. So, and it's all of this, makes you, so you can't achieve goals, so there's a conflict. So one value of conflict that actually makes a group test and challenge ideas. So if you want to be careful about making good decisions, you need to actually have conflict, because then you test your ideas and then you'll figure out whether that idea is actually really a good one or not. So conflict can, however, be detrimental to group interaction and group decision making. So conflict can also be really, really bad though, right? It can have a negative impact on a group when it keeps the group from completing its task, or when it interferes with the quality of the group's decision or productivity, or number 3, when it threatens the existence of the group, like the group's going to fall apart or separate because of the conflict, right? So causes, 811. Perception, people think, but not in reality, just people perceive conflict, right? That actually causes real conflict a lot. Personality conflicts, people are different for a lot of different reasons: culture, gender, age, priorities, knowledge conflicts, right? Then like what's true, what do I know, what do I don't know? People, I know I've said a lot of things in groups and people will be like, let's Google that. I don't believe you. It's like, sure. Because as an attorney and as a professor, you don't want to say anything unless it's true, because people will always try to challenge you on it, right? And then that's pretty dumb if you say things that are wrong and then you get challenged and constantly are wrong, right? I shouldn't even be teaching the class if that was the case, right? So think about how that's one of my first prerequisites to me arguing. It's just, I'm really big about, I'm not going to proclaim knowledge unless I actually know. My memory is getting bad though. So what I think I know is a little harder now. Culture. Sometimes people are just different cultures, right? Remember, culture just isn't ethnicity. It could be down. I'm a politically different culture, religious different culture. I'm a city versus a country culture different person. I'm a vegan culture person. The other person, I like to hunt and shoot guns and eat animals. Power and status causes conflict, and so does procedural expectations. The way you think things should happen in a meeting, in a whatever it might be, in a restaurant. If you went to a restaurant, they're like, pay first instead of paying at the end. You might be like, what the hell? That's a conflict, right? Because you expect at a restaurant, you always order, eat, pay at the end, right? So they're like, oh, no, people always dash and dine, so we're going to make you pay first. Think about how that customers would definitely question that. Conflict does not just happen. You often discern phases or stages of conflict development. So let's learn about that. So it's which a little bit. So perceptions of, responding to conflict. So how do conflict happens? What do you do? Well, you can persuade people so the conflict goes away. I might offer you money, like my children. I'll bribe them. Please don't do this. I'm going to, and I'll give you, what's the word? Allowance, extra allowance. So you can buy something a little bigger than you've been saving your money up on, right? So you can persuade people. You can also do seduction, which is like if it's a woman, if like a succubus is, so it's a female vampire that's usually naked and very sexy, and then it draws its victim in through seduction, right? So through looking good, and then kind of drawing in the victim through seduction. Verbal aggression. Some people get angry and upset and say terrible things and mean things and are aggressive with you when there's conflict, right? We see that all the time in America because Americans are very, very verbally aggressive. In general about conflict. Just remember, there were low context cultures and we tend to be very individualist. And then finally, physical action. Some people get physical, which for adults gets you in jail. Really, really shouldn't do that at all, right? So, but physical action also means that like you might leave, right? Like that's physical, right? Like because you're I know people like you get into conflict, they're like, I'm out of here. I don't want it to get worse. I can't handle the it's stressful, so they just get out of there, right? I'm like, no problem with that. So first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. That's a quote from Mahatma Gandhi, and it's a great example of conflict, right? That Gandhi was leading the Indians to revolt against the British rulers, the colonists, and the Brits were like, okay, that's a conflict, right? And they first responded with, I'm going to ignore this. It'll go away. It doesn't matter. They can't change anything. And then they then realized that, oh, okay, you're not going away. So then they start ridiculing you, making fun of you, dehumanizing you, right, laughing at you. Then they realized, holy schmoly, you're dangerous. And so they fight you, right? But then by that time, it's too late and you win. And it just shows you the way that revolution works. That's what the quote means. So let's talk about misconceptions. Is conflict bad? Well, remember, it's inevitable. So it depends on how you manage it. So misconception one is that you want to avoid conflicts at all costs. So don't do that because you can't avoid it. It's going to happen. You want to embrace it. You want to manage it. It's natural. It's healthy. It leads to more research and discussion, enhances learning and analysis, right? So this whole like people who avoid conflict, that's not the proper way to go through life, especially in a group or at work, especially when it relates to anything about creativity. Misconception two, all conflict occurs because people misunderstand each other. That's untrue. Some conflicts are real and not about misunderstandings, right? So could be over power, status, could be personality, right? So, misconception three, all conflicts can be resolved. No, they can't, right? Look at Adidas and Puma. They died hating each other. And so not all conflicts can be resolved. Hopefully you have conflicts that you can manage and deal with though, right? For example, my wife and I are divorced and our kids, are separated with that. And that's something that was a conflict we just couldn't resolve. So it ended up in the relationship being legally ended, right? So, all right, types of conflict. There are three. Number one is a pseudo conflict, simple conflict, and then number three, ego conflict. So identifying the type of conflict can actually help manage the conflict. So let's look at pseudo conflict number one and AT1. That's when people misunderstand each other. Pseudo means false or fake, like pseudonym is a false name. Pseudo conflict is a false conflict. So pseudo conflict is conflict between people who actually agree, but who do not understand that the differences are caused by misunderstandings or misinterpretations, right? So to manage pseudo conflict, consider these strategies. Ask others what they mean by terms or phrases they mean so that there's no bypassing and then leading to a fake conflict. Establish a supportive rather than a defensive climate if misunderstandings occur. Remember, supportive climates are great. Be spontaneous, be empathetic. Become an active listener by using these skills. Ask appropriate questions about information or ideas that are unclear to you. Paraphrase content to test your understanding. Summarize your consumption of what your partner says, right? Paraphrase means say things in your own words. Paraphrase feelings when appropriate. Check your perception of your partner's feelings. Are you depressed? Like, are you suicidal? Right? Like, it's important to understand that. Paraphrase feelings in your own words. How people feel and what their emotions. That's what makes us human. And finally, research clearly supports the importance of good listening skills in small groups and teams. Right. So remember, we learned all about listening: stop, look, listen, question, etc. And that's active process. And then you have to select, attend, interpret / understand, and then it was remember. So AT2, simple conflict. When people disagree about issues. So simple conflict occurs when two people's goals or ideas are actually mutually exclusive. They can't coexist, right? Or incompatible. Like steam and ice cannot really coexist. Well, actually, that's not true. Ice and water they're mutually exclusive, because when it's freezing, it'll all turn to ice. There's no water left, right? It all turns to ice, right? And if it's hot, and all the ice turns to water, so they're mutually, I can say that ice and liquid are mutually exclusive. You can have both at the same time, right? So, or they're incompatible, right? So task conflict is over the what is happening. And the conflict occurs because of substantive differences about how to accomplish what the group is trying to achieve. Like we're doing a fundraiser, let's do a brownie sale. The other one's like, let's do a car wash. More and more individuals in the group don't agree about a specific idea or concept or conclusion the group's reached. So in contrast, we have process conflict. So this isn't about we're having a conflict over what, this is a conflict about how we're going to do things, right? So it occurs when one or more group members disagree about how the task should be or could be accomplished, and there's disagreement about group procedure, right? The order of things we should do. We got to have a plan, and then we got to do this, and other people are like, no, we're just going to do it, right? We'll start now, and then like, well, no, we need a plan. No, we don't. We can just go. It's easy, and then that's a process conflict. So conveying disagreement. So how do you know when people disagree and they have conflicts? Well, again, you want to clarify your perception and your partner's perception of the message. Because remember, it's not perceptions are greater than reality. If you're in love with somebody and you catch your partner looking at Instagram photos of the opposite sex and they're like steamy pictures, how do you perceive that of them? What does that mean when your partner's looking at other hot people on Instagram? Right? Some people say it's cheating. I don't think it's cheating, but I was like, I understand why that wouldn't make you happy, though, for sure, right? It's not a good thing, I don't think. But is it natural, healthy? Maybe, I don't know. So just clarify that perception. Why are you doing this? Sport or something. Okay. So keep the discussion focused on the issues, not the personalities. Use facts that support your point rather than opinions or emotional arguments. Facts are rule of the day with logical, reasonable, peaceful, rational people. I use a structured problem-solving approach to organize the discussion, define things, analyze them, identify several solutions, and then evaluate solutions and select the best one, right? Again, what's the conflict over? Here are a couple ways to approach and solve it. Which one's the best out of all those? And then select the best one. I'm having a conflict with my scheduling. I'm going to have several options out there, figure out which one's the best, and then go from there, right? And hopefully that will solve the problem. When appropriate, look for ways to compromise, right? Meet in the middle, or meet, not everybody has to give a little in order to gain. So that's compromise. Make the conflict a group concern rather than a conflict between just the two people, and ask others for information. Don't ask them to take sides. Ask them to help resolve the conflict, right? And if there's several issues, decide which issues are the most important and then tackle them one at a time. That's pretty much life. When things get complicated, just one thing at a time, one day at a time. That's honestly true. That's what I would tell you. If you're going to, like, if you were in prison, or if you were trying to do something that took years, it'd just be like, or you're traveling somewhere where you're walking somewhere, it takes forever, just one day at a time, one step at a time. If you start thinking about the whole task, it gets immense, you get discouraged, you give up. Find areas of agreement. That's another good way to manage conflict. Me and my ex-wife, we have a lot of things still in common, and I noticed that when we disagree about certain things, we can kind of go back to some of the things we know that we still agree upon, and that's a good way to just go there instead of having it end just on the conflict of the disagreement. And then, if possible, postpone decisions until additional research can be conducted. Maybe you'll find a better answer because there's something you don't know right now, and such a delay may also lessen tension. So let everyone cool down a little bit. So What's the third type of conflict? Ego conflicts, personality clashes. Ego conflict occurs when individuals become defensive about their positions because they think they're being personally attacked. Ego conflict results in deteriorating relationships. Relationship conflict occurs when one or more persons in the group do not like, respect, or value another person in the group. Of the types of conflict under discussion, this is the one that's most difficult to manage. So yeah, that's why when you form a group, like at companies, they should, you try and make sure there's no ego clash, personality clash, right? Because that's the one that's just hard to manage. Researchers have found that when either task or process conflict is present in the group, there's a chance that it could result in a third type of conflict, relationship conflict. So a lot of times you get power struggle. I was trying to remember what the acronym DPI-SEP means, but I don't remember. But you have, all sorts of things always happening in a group over power, because you can kind of say that a lot of the conflict in the world is over power. Why did Russia invade Ukraine, right? Why didn't Elon Musk buy Twitter? Because it's a bad financial deal with him. He's super rich at 100. God, I just saw his wealth the other day. He's the richest man on the planet, but like Twitter was like 44 billion. And so that wasn't even like 1/5 of it was not chump change, but it was like, damn, you can afford 44 billion pretty easily, bro. That's pretty awesome for you. Tips. No. So find issues that the disagreeing parties can agree on, right? Again, common ground. Identify and emphasize the common ground between them. Encourage them to describe the sequence of events that created the conflict. So everyone gets to kind of air their side of the story. And that often is really important just to make people feel better. And a key immediate concern when ego conflict flares up is group is to permit the disagreement to be verbalized without heightening the emotional tension. So you let each side tell the story, say things, but don't let them talk in a way that makes the conflict get worse and people like they're really, calling the other person bad names or something, right? So encourage active listening, pay attention, stop, look, listen. We went through that process in chapter 7. And return the discussion to the key issues under discussion. So keep it on topic, on task, and then try to turn the discussion into a problem to be solved rather than the conflict someone has to win. Because when you have winners, you have losers. And then the conflict usually doesn't end because the loser doesn't feel good about losing a conflict. 8.3, conflict and diversity in small groups. So the challenge is to use group diversity without becoming locked in intractable conflict. Although we've emphasized that not all conflict is bad and not all of it should be avoided, entrenched conflict decreases a group's effectiveness. The key to understanding how differences lead to conflict is understanding how group members communicate with one another, verbally and non-verbally, and another when conflict occurs. So effective communication helps manage the conflict. So 8.3.1, let's talk about culture, individuals and collectivist cultures and conflicts. So people in individuals cultures are more likely to use direct confrontational methods of managing disagreements than people who value a collective or team approach to group work. So they'll be more verbal about their individualists, will be more verbal about their conflict than people, or more direct and more confrontational, right, than the collectivists. People from collectivist cultures, especially cultures that place considerable stock in nonverbal messaging, prefer non-confrontational and indirect methods of resolving differences. So if you're negotiating with like Chinese, Japanese, Korean, North Koreans, Taiwanese, remember that they consider there's more emphasis in how you said it than what you said. And they're more indirect, non-confrontational, whereas Americans are really confrontational. So that's why if you ever have negotiating teams, you have to really understand the differences there and not have that confrontational style, because it doesn't work with Easterners. So she suspects this difference maybe because people from individualistic cultures tend to approach problem solving from a linear, step-by-step perspective, whereas people from collectivist cultures often use a more intuitive problem solving process. So I'm turning on my heater. It's cold. People from individualistic cultures are also more likely to use facts or principles as a basis for approaching conflict, negotiation, or persuasion situations. For people from collectivist cultures, adopt more relationship-based messages to manage differences. And it's important for people from collectivist cultures to save face by not being perceived as having lost a confrontation. So when you're in a negotiation, again, with collectivists, you cannot let them be disgraced. They have to be able to save face. And I think if you understand that, then you can manage the conflict really effectively. Right? There's got to be some compromise and win-win from that. Because if they come out looking like they took a loss, the collectivists, they'll cause a lot of shame, right? Because that means that they've definitely lost. You come back a loser for the collectivists, right? And there's going to be consequences from that. So let's talk about 832, conflict in high context and low context cultures. So like high context culture is one in which considerable weight is given to the context of unspoken messages. In the low context cultures, such as the United States, where low context, more emphasis is placed on words and their explicit meaning than on implicit nonverbal cues. So researchers have found that people in low context cultures have greater importance to task or instrumental issues than do people in high context cultures. In high context cultures, the expressive or emotional aspects of managing conflict take on special importance. In expressive conflict, the goal is often to express feelings and release tension. Right? So again, you'd be surprised that a lot of conflict is resolved if people just get to express their feelings. Right? I'm really upset about this. Yeah, let them talk about it. Listen, and you'd be, most of the time, the conflict goes away. People just want to express their feelings, right? So give them a voice, let them be heard, and that's a good starting point. So keeping the relationship in balance, maintaining the friendship, and managing the emotional climate often take a higher priority in a high context culture than achieving a particular outcome. So here, I never burn bridges in a collectivist, in a high context culture, right? Because I'm always thinking about the relationship and balancing it and making sure that I don't let my emotions do something where the relationships hurt forever, right? Because this particular outcome isn't as important as the overall big picture, so you win some and you lose some, right? As long as the relationship's in balance, it's cool. So beware of stereotyping, ethnocentric views, and egocentric bias. Ethnocentric views are when you are centered on your own ethnicity. You judge other people by always comparing them to your own culture or the way you do things, and that tends to make them look inferior. Right. So because Americans, for example, are very ethnocentric because we compare everybody to us materialistically, culture-wise, the way we do things. Right. For example, if I said, please take off your shoes before you come to my house, if you were a very ethnocentric American, you'd look at me and say like, no, or why? That's weird. Right. And you'd question and challenge me on coming into my own house and kind of a rule I was going to impose on you, right? So minorities, be tactful, yet assertive, and expressive to the group. So every time you're the only person in the group that's whatever, only girl, only guy, only gay person, only Black person, only Hispanic, only Asian, only white person, right? It doesn't matter, only older person, only younger person. If you're a minority, you want to be tactful, careful, but assert yourself so they don't ignore you and you don't just kind of hide. And express yourself to the group. Ask your members to consider an alternative view as well. Are all homeless people really drug addicts and losers? Some are just temporary, some it's just really bad luck. Sometimes it's just capitalism. Sometimes maybe they are mentally ill, right? And then these are stereotypes I've heard about homeless people, right? It's just ask them to say, do you think, remember, all the statements are bad, right? So maybe just get them to not say all homeless are drug addicts and losers, right? Just some. Gender differences in conflict. So research suggests that men and women are different. We learned that they have different communication patterns. That was from Demer Tannen's book. Earlier, we looked at that about in chapter 6, I believe it was. So here we're going to learn that obviously it's also different on how men and women approach conflict. So research suggests that people with a feminine style managing conflict, remember, either men or women can have a feminine style, it's not gender, are more likely to be interested in issues of equity, fairness, empathy, I care about your feelings, I know your pain, caring, I care about you, I don't want to just win and I don't care about you at all, and closeness, right? Again, we have to be close. I don't want to do something that makes us go far apart, right? And encourages mutual involvement and generally to focus on relationship issues. So that's a feminine management style of conflict. Masculine style is let's achieve goals, let's protect our self-interests. I don't care what the other person's, about our opponent and what they lose. It is concerned with the equality of rights, fairness, and generally focusing on the task. Let's get things done. Conflict management styles, women tend to emphasize more expressive goals in conflict, whereas men emphasize instrumental or task objectives, right? And getting things done. So 844, let's learn about conflict management styles. Your conflict management style is based on actually 2 factors. Number 1, how concerned you are for your people or other people. And number 2, how concerned you are for yourself. So these 2 factors or dimensions result in 5 conflict management styles shown in figure 8.1 on page 117 of your textbook. These 5 styles are: number 1, avoidance; number 2, accommodation; number 3, competition; number 4, compromise; and number 5, collaboration. So we'll learn about 8.1, 8.41, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll learn more about avoidance, combination, competition, compromise, and collaboration. So avoidance is where you avoid the conflict. That doesn't work. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. So it's a terrible strategy. The combination is where you accommodate people in the conflict. So this isn't a compromise. It's more like, you are vegetarian. I invited you to my dinner. I will accommodate you by having vegetarian food there, right? So I'm giving all the way to accommodate the other person who's a vegetarian. You're not like saying, I'll give you half meat on your plate, right? To accommodate them, you have to fully go to what they need. And so it's kind of a loss, but it's a good way to, sometimes you need to accommodate a conflict, right? It's just better than fighting them. A competition is when you have, obviously, people are trying to win a race or win something. So that just the whole, you're all trying to, like, may the best man win. First person who wins is how you settle the conflict, right? Compromise, you meet in the middle. Both sides give and take, right? And then collaborations, we work together to manage the conflict. And this one's maybe the best. So collaborative conflict management, let's learn about it more. Yeah. So research supports the principle that focusing on shared interests, the common ground, my enemy is my friend, and developing a collaborative conflict management style are usually preferred over more combative, like conflict management styles, right? So makes a lot of sense. Let's work together rather than like, let's go to war against each other and just, whoever wins does whatever they want. So 851, let's learn about separate the people from the problem. So when conflict becomes personal and egos become involved, it's very difficult to keep a positive climate. And people feel like they're being manipulated and evaluated. They become defensive. Separating the person from the problem means let's value the individual as a person. Let's treat them as an equal, and let's empathize with their feelings. And key to valuing others is to use good listening skills. It's also useful to acknowledge the other person's feelings. You should be upset. I would be upset too, right? And then you let them talk and you listen, and then you can see if you can work on the together to solve the conflict. Emotion is the fuel of conflict. So several scholars agree that efforts to maintain our feelings facilitate the conflict management system. So what you can do to calm down, anger management techniques, breathing, finding your happy zone, de-escalating, right? Avoiding eye conflict. When I have a conflict, I generally try not to look at the people that I'm arguing with, right? Because when you look at each other, you tend to get emotional, and then that fuels the conflict. And so I want to be in control, so I try and control my emotion, and so I actually try to limit the eye contact. Think about boxers doing the stare down or fight, right? It's intense. I don't want that. I'm trying to just argue and verbally go through and manage the conflict. I don't need that emotion. Solutions. We got the XYZ formula. According to this method, you say, when you do X in situation Y, I feel Z. Right, here's an example. When you're 15 minutes late to our staff meetings, I feel like you don't care about us or our meetings, right? And so you're not accusing them of being late. You're not judging them and punishing them. You're just saying, hey, look, my feelings are hurt. I feel like you don't care about us when you show up late, right? So number one, let's acknowledge the person's feelings. Determine number two, what their specific behavior is causing these intense feelings. Number three, assess the intensity and importance of the issue. Don't underestimate someone's intensity, right? Like, people feel a lot of anxiety about doing speaking. I don't at all, but I cannot underestimate your anxiety just because I don't have that anxiety, right? It's just because I understand it's probably really, really intense for you. And number four, let's invite the other person to join in working towards solutions. Invite them. And number five, let's make a positive relational statement, right? We've gotten over these conflicts in the past. We'll get over them today and in the future. So 852, we focus on shared interests. Remember, find commonalities, money talks, because everybody is commonly focused on money. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So just shared interests it's something that I focus on a lot. Like, this is a win-win for all of us. So that's why we should work together, right? Generate many options to solve the problem. That's P, 8.53. So let's brainstorm. We learned about how to do that in chapter 5. Let's research the solutions and then be open-minded. 8.54, let's make decisions based on the objective criteria. We set out standards, right? Here, my example is my criteria for a real estate deal. It is objective, not subjective. And my example here would be my objective criteria for good real estate is I'm talking about a home, and it's got to be on a dead end or a cul-de-sac, no busy thoroughfares. I don't like car traffic. It brings crime and accidents. I have kids and dogs. I don't want a church too close by. I want to have highway access. I want to have shopping, but not too close by. I like space, trees, and not people. around me as well. I need good schools. That's one of the determining factors in property value. And I want to be part of city infrastructure. So I don't need a well or a septic tank. I'm on city sewer, I have water, I have electricity. I can just connect to all of that without having to connect and pay for that or something like that, or get my own solar thing going. And those are all some examples of what I would want, where if any of those things don't exist, I'm not going to buy the property. I don't compromise on any of those things. Those are all like, just got to check all those boxes. Those are the filters that I would consider everything that meets that criteria for actually buying real estate. Because you don't want a lot of things I just mentioned too close or too far. So 8.6, let's talk about uncooperative group members. How do you deal with difficult group members? Some of you might be dealing with that right now just because they don't even participate. So our individualistic cultural traditions often make it challenging to develop collaborative groups and teams, right? Because the fact that we're individualists just kind of makes it a little bit tougher for us to be group members, because we're individualists and we're not collectivists. So because Americans are taught to be individualists. Research suggests that if you think you're a typical group member who abides by the norms and rules of the group, you're more likely to be upset by someone who obstructs the group process. Well, everybody else is, communicating. Why is this one group member not communicating at all? Right? You'll feel like they're obstructing the process, and it's true, they are actually. So exit ones, let's manage your emotions. It's about EI, emotional intelligence, not IQ, intelligence quotient. So effective people control their emotions. They're not smart. A lot of the most effective people in life, they just control their emotions, because basically emotions make you dumb. So it turns your brain off, right? You're not a rational, smart creature. You're just driven by obsession, compulsion, or impulse. So researchers have confirmed that teams comprised of people with a well-developed sense of emotional intelligence, or EI. That is, they have empathy for others and are better to manage their own emotions, have less contentious and more productive meetings. So one of the things you can work on in life is your emotional intelligence. When you're in stressful, anxious, nervous, angry, upsetting, frustrating situations, are you able to deal with those emotions? Or do you let them get the best of you and then you regret things? So anger management, by the way, remember, it's natural to be angry. But number one, just be aware of your anger level. So you should be angry, but be careful that you're like nuclear angry when, you should be angry, but you don't want to be too intense. Breathe. Calms you down, focuses things, pauses things, slows your heartbeat down. Use self-talk. Anger is not rational. Anger will not help me right now. I can control this. I really like self-talk too. I find, for example, when I'm doing certain things and I need confidence, I'll usually tell me don't think, just do it. Or I'll say things like, I've done this before, you can do it now. So, and then I'll go and do it. Monitor your nonverbal communication. Understand how your body language shows your anger or your frustration, right? And then a lot of people have, again, adapters. And then number 5 is avoid personal attacks. And don't bring up old grievances either. Right? So remember, don't avoid the ad hominem. We learned that in Logical Fallacies, chapter 5. So you get angry, but don't get personal. Right? Be angry, but be angry about what happened, not about who did it and how they did it. 862, describe what is upsetting you. Say, I feel, not you are doing this. You are making me mad. Say, I feel angry, right? That's a great way to express yourself without upsetting the other person. And 16 is disclose your feelings. Beware generalizations, but there are no magic words that will de-escalate conflict. Being sensitive and thoughtful about how others may respond to your messages can help you express your ideas in ways that are more likely to be heard rather than immediately rejected, right? So this is important. In the old days, people had diaries and they would want to write about all their feelings, right? And nobody would read your diary, as private. It was a great way. I think some people use social media now. It's pretty interesting, but just get your feelings out there. I think it's important for a human being to express their feelings. And then return to the issue of contention. Get back to what the conflict's about. Don't avoid it. What's the underlying issue? Table 8.1, page 123 gives you a bunch of ways to return to that without causing more conflict. Groupthink. Let's learn about this. So groupthink is the illusion of agreement, the type of thinking that occurs when a group tries to minimize conflict. No one wants to rock the boat. Let's maximize cohesiveness and reach a consensus without critically testing, analyzing, and evaluating ideas. I see groupthink happen a lot when groups choose their topics, because nobody debates the good and the merit of the topic. Group just goes with whatever got mentioned first, and sometimes you see that it's not even a great topic or doesn't fit the assignment very well, right? So, but the group went with it because it was out there, and nobody else bothered throwing anything else out there. Nobody else said disagreed, so they just went with it, right? Great example of groupthink. When a group reaches decisions too quickly, it does not properly consider the implications of its decisions. Groupthink results in ineffective consensus. Too little conflict often lowers the quality of the group decisions. You want to question ideas and decisions. When a group does not take time to examine the positive and negative consequences of alternative decisions, the quality of the decision then suffers. So let's learn about, I have 33 minutes left, I think so. 871, let's talk about symptoms of groupthink. What are the symptoms of when this illusion is happening? So critical thinking is not encouraged or rewarded, right? Because everybody wants to just accept the decision. Members believe that they can do no wrong. Therefore, there's no reason to question anything, right? Members are too concerned about justifying their actions instead of actually thinking about questioning their actions. And the members apply pressure on others to agree or to follow the leader. So those are the common symptoms of groupthink. Reducing it. 872. So encourage critical independent thinking, be sensitive to status differences that may affect decision making, D/F. Remember that critical independent thinking comes along with more diversity than in homogeneous groups. Bring in an outsider to evaluate the group's decision making process, and then assign a devil's advocate. The Catholic Church, that meant that you would always assign somebody to say the opposite. And they would just always argue the opposite side. And it's a great way to just challenge everything because you always have a devil's advocate questioning everything. Managing conflict online, that's y'all, because you're online groups. So online groups will try to avoid conflict. That's a bad idea. Manage it instead. It's more challenging to manage conflict online, however, because you're not face-to-face, especially relational conflict. Collaborate on solving conflict. You want to work together. Put it out there on the discussions. Talk about what you can do. Generate solutions, evaluate them, then implement them. And what about your opinion? You're now a veteran of group work and conflict. What do you think are some good tips and ways to manage conflict? Because you may have one where you have a non-participating group member, for example, right now, right? 8.8, consensus, reaching agreement through communication. So consensus occurs when all group members support and are committed to a decision. So it doesn't, unanimous means we all voted the same. Consensus means we all voted the same and we all believe and we're like committed, like death before breaking the consensus. So ants, honeybees, and other species strive to achieve a common goal. Even if a group does not reach consensus on key issues, it is not necessarily a failure. Good decisions can certainly emerge from groups whose members do not all completely agree. The U.S. Congress, for example, does this all the time. They never reach consensus, but they generally, do the legislative process. So pretty rare, but sometimes you can reach it. And 881 is the nature consensus. So it's time consuming. So remember, too quick a decision is often groupthink. So it takes a lot of time to come to consensus, and you usually will need a compromise. If you cannot reach consensus, then often majority just wins, or the leader decides. So we suggest 3 pieces of advice in mind when you're striving for group consensus. So number 1 is, because groups have a tendency to get off track, help keep the group oriented toward its goal. Groups and teams often fail to reach agreement because they engage in discussion that is not relevant to the issue at hand. Groups digress. Number 2, let's be other-oriented and sensitive to the ideas and feelings of others. Listen without interrupting, making an honest effort to set aside your own ideas and seek to understand the ideas of others. Number 3, promote honest interaction and dialogue. Genuine consensus is more likely to occur if group and team members honestly express their thoughts and feelings. Withholding ideas, suggestions may lead to groupthink. Studies have shown that good active listening go towards managing conflict. Good communication. Make sure you clarify any misunderstandings. Avoid opinions and being closed-minded. Avoid win-lose situations, right? Make everything a win-win. Emphasize areas of agreement. Find common ground. And finally, seek out different opinions and alternatives. A great way to manage conflict and to make sure you have reach consensus. Chapter 9, we're done.